So this is fabulous. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming to attention and getting us started on time here this morning. We're very, very excited to launch this PDA Day here on the Petaluma campus. This morning as I was driving here, As I was driving here this morning, the sunrise, the dawn was so beautiful, and I had all these lovely words I was going to say about bridging communities, and it just all went right out the window, and I thought, it's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be a beautiful day. So for all my speakers here who are anticipating getting started, let's just remember, it's going to be a beautiful day. So let's get the party started, shall we? I'd like to bring up Dr. Frank Chong to open us up.
Thank you. Wow. Welcome to the 2016 Academy Awards. And the winner is Petaluma. We can't go on without thanking Mary Sandberg, who's really the brains behind the operation. Mary, thank you. I pass by her office, kind of weekly and say, how things going, and she goes, everything's under control, Dr. Chong. And then she slams the door. So happy to see all of you today. Happy Year of the Monkey, Kung Hei Fa Choi, Chuk Mong Nam Mui. And it's really wonderful to kick off the new year. I can't wait to hear Dan Munton's Tauzer lecture. We're all excited about that. I get I kind of warm up for him today, so I kind of warm up the opening remarks. And I just want to bring to your attention a couple opportunities and challenges that we have moving into 2016. One of the opportunities is the 2030 plan, which is our master planning process, and I really feel like we're moving in great strides. We have board engagement, we have staff support. Over 200 SRJC folks signed up to be on 8 committees to serve on this planning committee. Those of you who are signed up or involved, please raise your hands. See, so I think if there anything goes south with this report, it's on you, not me. I believe in distributive leadership. So I think the 2030 plan, after this session, we're going to have a working session to talk about where we're at and where we're going. We're very excited. We are going to launch the first major project, and that's the modernization of Burbank Auditorium. So we're very excited about that. And then we're going to begin very shortly thereafter starting to modernize some of the old tired classrooms throughout the 4 campuses. But being here today in Petaluma gives you a sense of the depth and breadth of Santa Rosa JC and its reach into the community. And at some point, we might have to do a PDA at Schoen Farm or at the Public Safety Center, because unless you really have an opportunity to visit these sites, you don't really get an appreciation for what your work does on a day-to-day basis to change the lives of people that we serve. And it's really you, the faculty, staff, my administrative team, working together to try to really serve this community, and we know we serve it well. But we do have our challenges, and the main challenge, of course, and many of you have heard about, but I think we need to really bring it out into transparency, is that we have some enrollment challenges. Typically, when the economy goes north, enrollment will go south. And we have tried many different strategies to grow our enrollment. We're experiencing growth in online, we're experiencing growth in evening classes, we're experiencing growth in non-credit, we're experiencing growth in international students, and we're going to continue to grow those programs. We have the same number of student headcount as we had in previous years. We have many students taking far less units, and you should need to talk to your students and encourage them to take more units. And if finances is a problem, we are working to try to get every high school senior, the 5,430 high school seniors in our public schools in Sonoma County, to fill out a financial aid application, so that we would be working with Student Services under the leadership of Ricardo Navarrete and his staff to really do that. Mary Kay Rudolph's working with department chairs to adjust the schedules as we need to, and we will be coming up with strategies on how to reduce expenditures, because we cannot sustain the current budget as it is. And you might have heard Nick Durkos, the chancellor at UC Berkeley, talk about severe structural deficits that UC Berkeley is experiencing. So it's not just Santa Rosa Junior College. If you talk to your colleagues statewide, most districts' enrollment is going down, except in certain areas in Southern California. I don't want to be alarmist, but at the same time, I'm a realist. And I think, in our 98 years, we've had bumps in the road, and we will get through this. And we'll get through it with all of your brain power and working together with all of us. So I'm really excited about that. The last thing I want to talk about is our centennial, our 100th anniversary in 2018. We're really gearing up for a real festive event, really try to look back at the 98 years and 100 years that we've had, and we have a planning committee led by Ellen Marymount Silver, Kate McClintock. I met with the foundation board yesterday. They're really going to look at this as a way to try to make college more affordable and to raise funds to meet the gap that students don't have to go to college. So I'm very excited about that initiative. And then finally, I just want to wish you a great semester. I think there's a lot of great things going on at the JC. Today, please take some time to excuse me? I know what time it is. I don't want to cramp a Dan's time. So I say, please take some time to look at how beautiful the Petaluma campus is. Talk it up to your friends. It's a great first choice and destination point for our students, and let's support Petaluma. Okay? Thank you very much, and have a great semester. And it's my honor to introduce Jane Saldana-Talley, who oversees the Petaluma campus.
Oh my goodness, I try not to follow children, dogs, and Dr. Chong, and here I am. Welcome to SRJC Petaluma. When I joined SRJC in 2007, PDA was a segregated affair. And we had, most of the workshops were in Santa Rosa, a handful in Petaluma. We had that one bright moment where Michael Salinger was on this stage doing his Tauzer lecture, but it was all projected back in Santa Rosa. Everybody was there, or they drove back afterwards. So this is such a special occasion. 2015-16 is SRJC Petaluma's 20th anniversary on this site, and nearly 10 years since we tripled our square footage thanks to the Measure A bond. We've had many special occasions over the years, and truly your presence here today marks one of the occasions we will long remember and talk about. Shortly after we moved into this campus in the mid-1990s, Dan Johnson and the Petaluma Argus-Courier jokingly referred to SRJC Petaluma as wonderful but barely noticeable, like a peaceful, giving child, diligently and effectively accommodating its immediate family and others without making a ripple, and an inconspicuous extended relative of its much older, larger, and mightier Santa Rosa SRJC campus in Santa Rosa. So, in the meantime, SRJC Petaluma has grown into a place for student success, and our enrollment here makes us larger than 16 of California's community colleges, while we generate 15% of the district's FTES. Now, I'm from a large family, and I know what it means to wait your turn, and I know what it means to respect your elders, and that it takes a long time sometimes to change family tradition. And those of us in Petaluma have been patiently waiting our turn. Many of us spend a good deal of time on the Santa Rosa campus, and we've come to know and love it for the grande dame that she is. And we've also enjoyed other locations like Schoen Farm, the Harvey Hansen Barbecue, and the Culinary Center. We know that SRJC is bigger than the individual parts, and we love that about our college community. I want to thank Dr. Chong. This is a promise day from him, who's also from a large family, and for having the wisdom and vision to bring us together during our twice annual PDA days. He was a little surprised that we didn't do that when he first arrived here, and for keeping his promise to one day bring PDA to Petaluma. I want to thank the SRJC Petaluma faculty and staff who respectfully but persistently asked, when in Petaluma? And to Laura Sparks in particular for representing her colleagues on the Professional Development Committee and helping others to see that it really was possible to do it in this place. I want to thank, where are you, Laura? I want to thank the Professional Development Committee and Mary Sandberg for listening and eventually agreeing to take a chance on changing our family tradition. And for all the SRJC colleagues across the district who had a hand in making this day the success that she tells us it will be. I know it will be a great day. Lastly, I want to thank all of you for being with us here today. The traffic on the freeway was a little annoying, but I liked that. I liked the fact that I imagined everyone on the freeway coming to this campus. Your presence here today matters more than you know. So, wander around, sit back, take off your shoes, put your feet up, help yourself to anything that's in the refrigerator, and most of all, feel at home here. So, it is now my very great pleasure to invite my friend, Coach Karen Stanley, SRJC CAD instructor. You're going to jump up on the stage, aren't you? And my friend to come up. Karen was recognized for excellence in teaching, as you well remember, by being chosen as the Spring 2015 Tauzer Lecturer. She will share a little history behind the tradition of the Brook Tauzer Lecture Series at SRJC, and will introduce our 2016 Tauzer Lecturer, Daniel Munton.
One more. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning and welcome. Dr. Jane and I decided that we would change the usual traditional greeting of handshakes, and we're now doing squats. So when you see someone, it's all about squats. Okay, we're good. So before I have the pleasure of introducing this morning's speaker, I would like to give a brief history of the Tauzer Lecture, particularly for new faculty members who may not know about the history. The Tauzer Lecture is a longtime SRJC tradition since 1987, named in honor of Brook Tauzer, who is an emeritus professor of history and former vice president of academic affairs at SRJC. Brook was the first VP of instruction and, in fact, was the first VP of anything at SRJC. He worked at the college from 1955 through 1986 and frequently taught classes throughout his career. While working in the Office of Instruction, Brook collaborated with a small group of originators who are responsible for the beginning and establishment of both the Petaluma campus and Schoen Farm. Even after retiring, he authored a 2-volume set of SRJC history covering the period from 1957 to 2000. Brook is cherished, especially by those who know him well, for his warmth, integrity, and dedication to academic excellence. He is thriving today, I can tell you. He would love to be here, but I'm sure he sends his best to everyone, and especially our speaker this morning. The Tauzer Lecturer is an SRJC faculty member who has been selected for teaching excellence by a committee consisting of former Tauzer lecturers. So, it is my absolute pleasure and delight to introduce the 2016 Tauzer Faculty Lecturer, Mr. Dan Munton of the Mathematics Department. To honor Dan and his discipline, I would like to introduce him as an equation of 3 parts. Part 1 of the equation. Dan attended, he's so cute. Dan attended Marin Catholic High School and then the College of Marin, changing majors many times and finally finding his passion for mathematics in, of all places, a biology class. Dan received his Bachelor's of Arts degree in mathematics from UC Berkeley in 1983 and his Master's of Science degree in mathematical modeling of environmental systems from Humboldt State University in 1989. Dan taught for a couple of years at Marin Catholic High School, and then in 1989, SRJC made the wise decision of hiring him as a full-time faculty member in the mathematics department. Dan's excellence in teaching is shown in many different ways, including possessing both breadth and depth of teaching experience. having taught almost all of the 20-plus classes that the mathematics department offers, from beginning skill development classes like elementary algebra to more advanced critical thinking classes like differential equations. While the discipline of mathematics is widely considered a science by many, Dan considers it to be both a science and an art. His holistic teaching style of mathematics touches on areas from anthropology, social science, art, history, music, mythology, cultural relevancy, personalities, data, innovation, liberal arts, numerations, field research, population models, glyphs, and architecture. Whew. In 2001, Dan received the Academic Senate Faculty Recognitions Award for Outstanding Contributions for Sabbatical Leave Project. In 2004, Dan received the California Mathematics Council of Community Colleges, known as CMC to the Third, Teaching Excellence Award. And in 2009, Dan was awarded the prestigious NISOT Award based on his teaching excellence, outstanding curriculum development, creation and use of innovative teaching materials and techniques, sensitivity to student needs, and leadership in the college community. Dan has also served as departmental and district leader, including department chair of the math department, chair of the math department scholarship committee, academic senate vice president, and AFA vice president. Part 2 of the equation, the nature lover. Dan is a huge fan of nature and getting out into the wilderness. He is an avid hiker, backpacker, climber, kayaker, and river rafter, and has hiked and climbed hundreds of peaks all over the world. His mom and dad started him out backpacking when he was quite young. They had backpacks without any shoulder padding, only tennis shoes for hiking, and tiny little orange pup tents for sleeping. On one more memorable occasion, the entire family of 6 hiked into a wilderness area and got caught in an unseasonal snowstorm up in elevation. All 6 of them slept packed into one tiny pup tent. And as they huddled through the night, they feared suffocation as much as the freezing temperatures. But they survived. That shows Dan's resilience. The photos here, on the left is Dan at Point Reyes Beach. On the right, Dan in Argentina embracing a waterfall. The top middle photo is river rafting with math colleague Richard Warner and his kids. And the bottom middle is hiking in Patagonia with math colleague Warren Rood. A few more nature lover photos here. On the far left, Dan beginning a 65-mile hike in Patagonia. On the far right, contemplation in Patagonia by a glacier runoff. Top center, river rafting in the San Juan River in Utah. On the left, camping by fire in Yosemite, again with Warren Rood. And on the right, this represents one of Dan's highlight climbs, a week-long hike of the High Sierra Trail to Mount Whitney with Warren Rood. And here we see him recovering in some hot springs. Part 3 of the equation, the family man. Dan met his wife, Jessica. Where are you sitting, Jessica? Who's here with us today, in 1985. At where else? A math lab. Dan was teaching math at Marin Catholic High School, and Jessica was a math tutor at the College of Marin. A mutual friend, Richard, wanted to introduce them. As Jessica tells me, she refused because she was only 21 years old at the time, and their friend Richard was so old, possibly 35 at the time, that she assumed that Dan was the same age, and therefore, as she says, she did not want to date any creepy old math teacher. But their friend Richard persevered, set it up so that they met by chance at a math lab, and it was love at first sight. They were married 2 years later. They have known each other for 30 years now. Dan is still teaching math. Jessica is still tutoring math here at SRJC, and they are still in love. Dan is the very proud father of 2 girls. Leela, who is with us today, please put your hand up. The older, 27 now, and Frances, 24. It's no surprise that Dan's love of nature transferred to his family, taking them camping when the kids were just 6 months old. From then on, family summers were spent camping, backpacking, rafting, kayaking, or going to the beach, always appreciating nature and having fun. Here, the family takes part in another of Dan's passions, the Giants. Dan grew up in a household of 4 boys. On top, he's shown here with his 3 brothers and his father. And the bottom photo is Dan with his father, Don, who's now 85, and his late mother, Nancy. Dan is also, Dan's family also includes pets, and he is a wonderful pet guardian. Dan's greatest joy at the moment is his 3-year-old grandson, Theodore Daniel, also known as Ted. Ted's name for Dan is Pop Pop, and Dan is a very doting grandfather and is always ready to babysit. So now it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce to you the 2016 Tauzer Faculty Lecturer, the whole and complete Mr. Dan Munton.
That was wonderful. You're amazing. Thank you. That's not the first slide. Wow, that was amazing. Karen is so positive and so full of energy. Wouldn't you hate to have to follow her up on a stage? Oh, I'd like to extend my welcome to the Board of Trustees, Dr. Chong and the administration, my faculty and classified colleagues, and especially those over in the overflow room. I hear they installed Barca loungers, and there's food vendors and an open bar, so I know you guys are enjoying yourself. They also put a ugly filter on the camera, so what you're seeing, it looks like Brad Pitt. It's really me. I appreciate that. You guys have to suffer with the real thing. Before I start the lecture, I do want to express some gratitude and some thanks as well to Dreamer and Sherry Joe for all the hard work that they do. To Russ and Jessica, Greg, Matt, Joanne, Yarrow, David, Theo, and all the others in media services who've touched this presentation, if it looks good, they're responsible. If it's awkward, that's on me. Excuse me. I would also like to thank my good friend Pam Horton and my colleague Keith Waxman for generously letting me use some of their photos in my talk here. And also I'd like to thank the Tauzer Committee for throwing me into this wonderful experiment in sleep deprivation. I truly wanted to say no when Karen asked me, but she had a beer. And also, I hold the other Tauzer lecturers in such high regard. And although I was hired 2 years after Brook Tauzer retired, his legacy was conveyed to me by my older colleagues, and I have such respect for that legacy, I didn't feel that I could say no. They've set a high bar, and I hope that I can come up to it, at least in a little bit. But most importantly, I also need to thank my family and my friends who have talked me back from the edge of nervous breakdown dozens of times in the last little bit. I'm pleased to see so many of you here, too. I'm going to steal a line from my colleague, John Martin, who gave a Tauzer lecture in mathematics 19 years ago, for those of you who are here, that's how long ago it was, and who said, how many of you ever thought you'd sit through a math lecture again? So, if you weren't here 19 years ago, oh, that's my line, I made it up. And yet you are here, and I thank you. For those of you who are here for John's awesome lecture, you probably remember walking out of that auditorium and believing that mathematics could be considered a thing of beauty. But perhaps like Bertrand Russell, you think of that beauty as cold and austere. That sounds so impenetrable, so monolithic. That's not the mathematics I fell in love with at all. You see, I'm an applied math guy, and to me, mathematics tells a story. in the same way that art tells a story, or that music tells a story, or that poetry, or psychology, or economics, or any of our fields tells a story. And I fall in love with a story, and I see what mathematics can bring to that story, or what mathematics come out of that story. And that's what mathematics is to me. For the first 20 years that I was here, the story that I was interested in was the story of spotted owls. And I would go out during the field season every year with the biologists. And we would count owls, we would observe owls, we would record their vocalizations, we would see how many young they had. But none of that was important for the mathematics. I could understand the mathematics without doing that. But I wanted to go out to get a richer picture, to get a fuller appreciation of the story. And the story was enriched by my experience, and when I look at the mathematics, I see the owls. But I'm not here to talk about owls today, am I? I'm here to talk about cycles of time, mathematics in the Maya world. And the Maya calendar generated some amazing mathematics. The Maya people generated some amazing mathematics to discuss their calendar, to use their calendar. But some people have said, Dan, that's kind of 2012, isn't it? Well, that's the Tauzer Lectures Committee's fault. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. It's true. Why would you talk about the Maya calendar now? Well, my Y2K talk has been retired, so that one was out. But for two reasons, I think I would like to talk to you about this today. First of all, it's something that I've enjoyed, that I love the story about, and that I've been passionate about for the last 5 years. And I think part of being a Tauzer lecturer is choosing a topic that you can be passionate about. The other reason, though, is that the contributions of the native peoples of America are often ignored and overlooked because the European conquest caused so many things to be lost. And this is the story of mathematics created, mathematics lost, and now mathematics being rediscovered. So that's the story that I want to tell and share with you today. All right, but you can't talk about the Maya calendar without talking about 2012, so that's where we're going to start. Let's see what we have to say about 2012.
It's starting. It's not just California. It's the whole world. 2012, rated PG-13, November 13th.
Well, it's the end of the world, but it's only rated PG-13, so how bad can that be, really? All right, perhaps Hollywood isn't the best place to go for information about the Maya calendar. Let's talk about what the internet was saying at the time. The Earth's magnetic field is going to reverse. Well, that happens from time to time, but it's a process that takes decades or centuries. It's not something that's going to happen on December 21st, 2012. Drought and crop failure. Well, that's not very commonplace. Again, it's probably not something that is attributable to one particular day. And I'm going to borrow a comment from my colleague Rick Upman from Sonoma State, who's now retired. And he said, it's interesting how much energy we'll spend thinking about apocalyptic events that we have no control over, and yet how little energy we'll spend trying to work on a problem that we can control, like global climate change. Planets will collide. What planet? Well, there's some evil twin of the Earth that's going to crash into it. And it's a government conspiracy that you haven't heard about this. And all of the amateur astronomers just some reason can't find it. All right. But the most insulting, the most deeply hurting thing that I saw on the internet was that the real Maya will return. Return from where? Well, from outer space. In the late 60s, a book called Chariots of the Gods was published. It was made into a movie, and in that book, they showed the picture of the sarcophagus lid for King Pakal of Palenque. And you can clearly see he's riding a rocket ship. There's a breathing tube in his nose. His hands and feet are working controls, flames shooting out the back. A complete misrepresentation of Maya culture and of Maya cosmology. King Pakal, this is his sarcophagus lid. He's in the fetal position, sinking not through flaming rockets, but through the jaws of the two-headed serpent, the entrance to the underworld. He's not riding a rocket ship. That's a tree. It's the tree of life. The roots extend down into the underworld, the canopy up into the heavens. It connects all three worlds. And in fact, that symbol is the Maya word for tree. And if you don't think it looks like a tree, then if you go down to Central America, you'll see these ceiba trees where the branches grow in this very cruciform form. All right. The reason I find this the most insulting, though, is that the real Maya, 6 million of them, are still living and working and playing and raising families in the same place they've lived, they've worked, they've raised families for thousands of years. And that place is Central America, the Yucatan Peninsula, parts of southern Mexico, into Belize, Guatemala, parts of Honduras, and El Salvador. Students of Maya history divide their civilization up into 3 parts. The one we're going to focus on is the Classic period. This is the era of the great city-states, where the giant buildings like Chichen Itza, Tikal were built. This period is surrounded by 2 creatively named periods, the pre-classic and the post-classic period. We could also discuss the post-conquest and the modern period as well. But we're going to focus on the classic. However, our history of the Maya is going to start in the 1500s with this man, Fray Diego de Landa. Fray Diego de Landa was a Franciscan priest, and the Franciscans had been granted exclusive rights by the Pope and by the King of Spain to convert the peoples of the Yucatan. And he arrived in the Americas as a 20-year-old and decided what he would do is walk across the Yucatan Peninsula and get to know the Maya people. This was an act of tremendous courage. Most people would not leave a Spanish settlement without a troop of soldiers because there's not a lot of good feelings between the Maya people and their conquerors. But he did this. He walked across the Yucatan Peninsula, and he earned the respect and the trust of the Maya people. They showed them their sacred writings and their sacred texts. They explained their culture and their ways to him. But he was a snake. He was not learning about their culture to help preserve it. He was learning about their culture to better destroy it. And at his church at Mani, he held an auto de fe, a huge bonfire. He sent his sent soldiers and priests out to gather all the icons, the texts, and everything that he could find of Maya culture, and he burned it here on the front lawn. And here's a picture that hangs in the governor's office in Merida. You see that flaming thing in a very stern-faced de Landa, and he wrote, "These people used certain characters or letters with which they wrote in their books about the antiquities and their sciences. With these and with figures and certain signs in the figures, they understood their matters and made them known and taught them. We found a large number of books in these characters, and as they contained nothing but superstition and lies of the devil, we burned them all, which they took most grievously and which caused them much affliction." Imagine watching your culture being burned and destroyed in front of you. This was going on not just in the Yucatan, but all over Central America. And there were voices that said this has to stop, but they were drowned out by the overwhelming majority of voices who were doing this to the Maya. They were so successful in this campaign of eradicating Maya literature that we now have only 4 texts remaining. And this is the source for much of what we're going to talk about today. Those 4 texts, we don't know their original source. We know them by their name. This one is the Dresden Codex. Dresden is a city in Germany, and it was discovered in a museum. Well, it resides in a museum in Germany. So we know them from where they reside, not from where they came from. There are 3 other codices as well. These codices consist of paper made of fig bark coated with a lime plaster and then hand-painted. There's 39 pages painted on both sides, so in the Dresden Codex. So we have 78 pages that are about 4 inches by 8 inches. Imagine if invaders came to destroy our culture and they burned every text, every symbol that we had, so that only 4 remained. Which 4 would you choose if you could choose? The Maya didn't get to choose, but which 4 would you choose to represent our culture? I'll make it easier. Only one can be your math text. That's not even the whole Harry Potter series. How do you make a choice like that? You can't. And yet here we have 4 random books. We also have these stone inscriptions and stone monuments. That one on the right is in Quiriguá It is about 35 feet tall. It's the tallest stone monument in the Americas. It's beautifully carved on all sides with the story of the Maya people. Excuse me. Delanda's abuses were so severe, he was actually recalled to the Vatican, where he was put on trial. While he was there, he wrote this book, Relación de las Cosas de Yucatán, and that book was written in 1566. Copies were made. The original was lost. The oldest copy that we have was written in 1660. Most of the copies were abridgments, so we've lost some of Delanda's original knowledge. That copy wasn't found until 1869 in a drawer in a museum. But this page from that text is something that could have been a Rosetta Stone for translating Maya glyphs. On this page, Delanda wrote across the top the Spanish alphabet, and then underneath the Maya symbols. But it was a mistake. Delanda assumed, he was not a linguist, he assumed they used an alphabet. If you use an alphabet, you need about 30 characters to write a language. The Chinese use a logographic system where the symbols stand for words and ideas, and you need thousands. The Maya have about 800 characters. Too many for an alphabet, but too few to express the richness of a culture. What these symbols are actually are consonant-vowel combinations. So when Delanda asked, what's the symbol for bay, Spanish for bee, they would show him, but to the Maya that symbol was the sound bay. There was a similar, or a different symbol for the sound bo, boo, ba. So you have all these different consonant-vowel combinations that would have different letters. No one was able to understand that until the late 50s. Let's talk about him for a minute. Jean-Frédéric Waldeck. First of all, check out how long he lived. 109 years. He claimed to be a duke, a count, an earl, a baron. He claimed to have been born in Prague, in Vienna, in Paris. He claimed to have been on expeditions to Egypt and other parts of Africa, although the manifests of those journeys don't ever mention him. It was said of him that he never let the truth get in the way of a good story. But he was an accomplished artist, and he had a powerful and wealthy patron in Lord Kingsborough. And about this time, the city of Palenque was being rediscovered in the jungles of Mexico. And Lord Kingsborough believed that what had been discovered was the lost city of Atlantis. So he sent Waldeck there to paint what he saw, to bring back pictures. And in the Temple of Inscriptions is a large panel, and here are 6 small squares from that panel, and check that out. An elephant. Clear evidence that the Maya were either from Asia or Africa, or had communication with Asia and Africa. Maybe not. Here's a drawing of the same panel by Linda Sheely, noted anthropologist from University of Texas at Austin. Here's a photograph of that same square. Elephant? Maybe not. These stone sculptures have been there for thousands of years, and the erosion is tough. It could be that it's like looking at clouds. You can see what you want. It could be that he's trying to appease his, or please his, patron back in England. But his painting was published in a book that was popular in Europe on the civilizations of ancient Mexico, and it just led to more misunderstanding and more misrepresentation of who the Maya are. Let's talk about someone who had maybe a little more serious contribution. Constantine Samuel Rafinesque was a successful businessman in Constantinople. So successful, he retired at the age of 25. Oh, sounds good, doesn't it? I'll tell you, it sounded very good about 10 minutes before I had to get up here and give this talk. And Baron von Humboldt had published 5 pages of the Dresden Codex, which had been recently popularized here in Europe. And Rafinesque was traveling around the Americas, and he saw this page, and he realized that perhaps these were numbers. Were you waiting for the math? It got here. Okay. And here was his realization. A dot is 1. So check out this page. You see a 1 dot here? There's 1. Yeah, and there's another. Oh, and here's 3, but you never see more than 4 dots anywhere. So he reasoned that if a dot was 1, the bar would be 5. so that this number here would represent 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So far, so good? All right. We'll be factoring polynomials a little bit later. Excuse me. So here are the Maya digits, 1 and 5. So what would this Maya number be? Oh, very nice. Okay. They would, now you'll notice I wrote them vertically. On the Dresden Codex, they're often written this way. You see them both ways. And what would that one be? 12. You guys, you're doing great. This is so far an additive system, a lot like the Roman numerals. In Roman numerals, there's a letter for each number. The Greeks used a similar system. And if you wanted to represent a number, you just put a bunch of symbols together and add them up. So MDLXV1, M is 1,000, D 500, L 50, 10, 5, and 1. Add them up, it's 1566, the year Delanda wrote his text. If we wanted to talk about the year 2016, we'd say we need 2 M's, we need an X for 10, a V, and a 1 to give us a 16. So far, so good? What we don't need in this system is a 0. Because why bother putting it in? You don't have to add it on. So this, but you can see how this could become very cumbersome, right? If you wanted to write 1,000,000, you've got to come up with lots of symbols. You're going to run out of letters eventually, or you're going to have to write a whole bunch of M's. And then you're going to have to count them. Well, we don't use that kind of system anymore much. We talk about a decimal system, our system, a base 10 system, which we inherited from the Hindu through the Arabs to our culture. We use 10 digits, 0 through 9. That's why we call this a base 10 system. We don't need any more symbols ever, because what we have are place value. Oh, sweet. We start with the ones place. You can have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. We add one more to that, and we get the tens place. We don't need a new symbol for 10. We say 1, 10, and no ones. And then 10 times 10 is 100, et cetera, et cetera. So we all are very familiar with that system. If I had 4,096, it'd say yes, 4 thousands, no hundreds, 9 tens, and 6 ones. But notice how crucial that 0 is. Without that 0, I could misinterpret that for 496. Or maybe it goes somewhere else and it'd be 4,906. I keep telling payroll, I think there's a 0 that you're missing. Yeah, no, we put it on, but we put it on the other end of your salary. Oh, so it's there. Just, all right. How important is 0? And how big of an idea is 0? There were only 3 ancient cultures to develop the concept of 0. The Sumerians and the Babylonians in the Iraq region, current Iraq region, and the Maya. How important is 0? Well, let's see.
So what have you two come up with?
Well, we thought about this in a variety of ways, but the basic idea is I would like myself. Go ahead.
I think I can sum up the show for you with one word. Nothing. Nothing? Nothing. What does that mean? The show is about nothing.
Well, it's not about nothing.
No, it's about nothing.
Well, maybe in philosophy, but even nothing is something.
Ah, you can base a whole successful series on 0, apparently. The Greeks had a lot of trouble with 0. The Greeks liked to think of numbers as lengths, as measurements, and they had a hard time trying to understand what that would mean to be a 0. And it leads to lots of paradoxes, like Zeno's paradox, the understanding of 0. So for the Greeks, 0 was quite a problem. All right, let's look again. See if you can find the largest number on this page that you can find. Let's see. I see an 11 over there. Can anyone beat 11? I hope so. Yeah, right next to it, there's a 16 to the left. And anything else that you see? Yeah. The biggest number anywhere in the Dresden Codex or any of the other codices is 19. So this means one of two things. Either the Maya never needed to count anything higher than 19, or they were using a base 20 system. We use base 10. When we want to represent 10, we use 2 decimal places, two positions. Okay. They use a base 20. Now, base 10 is a very common system around the world for all different cultures. Another common base is base 5, and you can kind of understand why. And Locally, some of the tribes used a base 8 system because they counted the spaces between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But the Maya used a base 20. Does it make sense why people might use a base 20 system? And you see remnants of that still today in French, where you don't say 80 by saying 8 tens, you say 80 by saying 4 20s. So historically, many cultures used a base 20, at least in their language. But to have a base system, a positional system, you need a 0. So let's look at some other symbols on this page and talk about the Maya 0. There's lots of other symbols, but the Maya 0 is the shell. And at first when I saw the picture, that doesn't look like a shell. But then as I was walking along the beach, sad me, in Yucatan, I ran across lots of these shells with different markings and different striations, looking like the great variety that you see there on that page. In other parts of the codex, you'll see other shells drawn that represent 0. The numbers are stacked vertically instead of horizontally like we write them. So what's the value of this 2-digit Maya number? Okay, well, let's see. It's 2 digits. The first digit, that's 2 dots. The second digit is 2 bars. That top position is the 20s position. So that's 2 20s. That's 40. The 2 bars is 10. That's 10 ones is 10. So that number would be 50. Does that make sense? Maybe not. But it's on a $50 bill. In Guatemala, they still use the Maya numerals, or they've reintroduced the Maya numerals in an attempt to regain part of their culture. So over on the far right-hand side, next to the picture, you can see that. Now, the Maya $100 bill, 100 is written with 5 20s and no 1s. So it's a bar and a 0, which looks like 10 to me. And when I'm handing the cab driver 100 quetzales for a 9 quetzale trip and say, keep the tip, he's very happy. And I'm out 90 quetzales. Okay. It gets a little more complicated. They carved these numbers in stone, as well as painting them in the codices. And when they carved them in stone, they did not like empty spaces. So there's the number 7, but you'll notice that there's a little ring in between the 2 dots. So they didn't like the empty space of just 2 or 1. They would often put a hollow ring in. But after 1,000 years of erosion, a hollow ring and a dot are kind of hard to tell apart sometimes. In addition, they had face variants. So sometimes instead of putting the bars and the dots, they would put the faces. You don't have to memorize these. Like I say, the only thing we'll be doing is factoring polynomials a little later. Maybe not. Oops. Got a little excited about the factoring polynomials. All right. There are 3 symbols for 0 that we'll see. The first is called a partially obscured quadrifoil. It's like a 4-leafed flower, but we only get to see part of it. The face variant, you'll notice the hand is over the jaw. The hand is the important part there. And then sometimes just the hand represents 0. All right. In Quirigua, we have this beautifully carved statue. And if you look at the bottom there, that face, you'll see that there's a fully anthropomorphized 0. Think of the time and energy it takes to carve something like that, just to represent 0. That's amazing. What would you do to represent 0? Maybe not that much. I think that's awesome, though. All right. Let's move on to Ernst Forstemann. He was born in Danzig in the 1800s. His father was a secondary school mathematics teacher, but his training was as a linguist. He was a doctor of linguistics. And his job was head librarian at the Royal Museum in Dresden. So he's the right guy with the right training, the mathematics and the linguistics, at the right time. De Landa's book is being rediscovered. We've got the Dresden Codex, at the right place at the right time. It's an amazing coincidence of history. And he probably was the only one alive at this time who was able to translate the Maya glyphs. So effective had the Spanish been in wiping out traditional culture and language that there was probably no one in the Americas who could even read the glyphs anymore. So we owe to him this rediscovery of Maya mathematics. And he wrote, "May someone check me and correct me where I err, but investigate further in this young science wherever I am right, because I work singly and hear scarcely any applause or criticism from the few who are so qualified." And it's true, he sounds kind of lonely, but there wasn't anyone else doing this work, and he published many papers. So now we're going to talk about the Maya calendars. These are the things that he deciphered for us. The first calendar is the Tzolk'in calendar. And the Tzolk'in calendar is a sacred ceremonial calendar. It's a calendar that has 13 numbers and 20 named days. The named days are those glyphs, and they're always in a cartouche like that. It's like they're an old-style TV set. So when you see that, you know you're looking at a Tzolk'in date. The days are named, there's 20 of them. Does it make sense why there'd be 20, right? We're talking about a base 20 system. It seems like a common number. And they're named after their gods. We do the same thing. This is Thursday. Welcome to Thor's Day. And tomorrow's Friday. That's Old German for Iron Man Day. I think they're all the Avengers in there. The calendar works like this. It's like our days of the week and the numbers. Today's Thursday the 11th. Tomorrow's Friday the 12th. The day changes, the date, the number, and the name. So this would work the same way. We have, if we started with 1 imish, it would be 2 ik, 3 akbal. And it would go on until we ran out of numbers, which would be down around ben. We have 12 eb, 13 ben. Now we're out of numbers. So we go 1 ish, 2 men, and continue along. We get down to ahau, the last position there, and we have 7 ahau, 8 imish, 9 ik, 10 akbal, and we would continue. Now you might think, why 13 numbers? But to the Maya, there are 13 major joints in the human body where disease can enter. And I've gone through all 13 of them in the last couple weeks. The first is the neck, so that's 1. Then you've got the 2 shoulders, 2, 3. Elbows and wrists, that's 4 more, that's 7. You've got the hips, I'll spare you, 8, 9. Knees and ankles, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 and 20 are very special numbers to the Maya people. We started with 1 amish. When we came back around, it was 8 amish. If we talk about how long this calendar is, or the cycle, we want to know how long will it take to come back around to another 1 amish day. This is what we call in mathematics the least common multiple of 13 and 20. And since 13 and 20 have no common factors, it's really just 13 times 20. This is a 260-day sacred calendar. Now, people ask, why 260 days? That's not anywhere near close to the solar year. That's a good question. There are several answers that have been proposed. Some say it's just the numerical properties of 13 and 20, which is certainly true. But Barbara Tedlock, who is an anthropologist, and she and her husband went to Guatemala, lived there for years, became Maya day keepers, people who keep the day and perform the ceremonies and rituals necessary every day. She said that the 260-day period is the length of gestation of a human pregnancy. And I think this is really a beautiful idea, the time for a human being to grow and to then be born. And it divides the solar year up into 2 cycles, a 260-day period, and then 105 days left. And 105 days is the time it takes from planting a seed of corn, the main food crop, to when you harvest it. So there's this beautiful symmetry of the growth of a human child, and then the growth of corn, which is going to sustain that child throughout his life. And I think that's just a beautiful idea. So I like that idea best. All right. Every day has traits associated with it. There are positives and negatives. They're very complex. And I chose an unnamed college employee, and I looked up their birthday, date and year, and found out that their birthday was actually 4 Ook. Ook is the dog sign. There are some great personality traits here. Strong authority, just and faithful, protective, loving, able to undo and correct problems. That's the kind of person we want around here. Courageous, alert, kind, harmonious, honest, respectful. Good judges, good guides into the unknown, trusted in times of need. But as I said, every day has good and bad. And the bad traits are arrogant, problem makers, violent fighters, insecure, emotionally unstable, easily confused, and weak. Unlike some people's idea of horoscope, where this is your destiny, the Maya don't view this as your destiny, but as possible traits that you could develop. And the job of the day keeper is to perform the ceremonies every day that help bring balance to your life. So how do you bring balance to someone when you see positive and negative traits? And different negative traits require different ceremonies. So this person isn't condemned to any of this. In fact, the Maya day keepers have been performing these ceremonies every day for thousands of years. So really, that person is blessed by having balance in their life. And like I say, this person will remain unnamed because it would be inappropriate to actually name the person. That's one calendar, a 260-day cycle, a 13-day cycle, a 20-named day cycle that work together to be 260 days. The second calendar is called the Hob calendar. It's a 365-day calendar. It's called the vague year because a year isn't really 365 days. We have that leap year thing going on. It consists of 18 months, which are glyphs, and 20 numbers, plus one 5-day month called Wayeb. The first month, we say, is the month of Pope. The second month, the month of Woe. Turns out that since this calendar drifts with no leap years, that these months don't correspond to the seasons like ours do. But it turns out that this year, the month of Woe goes into May. So as you're getting ready for finals, you can tell your students you're in for a month of woe, and they will understand what you mean perfectly. This works a lot like our months and days. Today's February 11th, tomorrow's February 12th. So it would be 1 Pope, 2 Pop, 3, 4, 5, 19 Pope, 20 Pope, and then the first of Woe, second of Woe. But the Maya didn't say 20 Pope. They would say the seating of Woe, which if you're sitting in the gym, if they don't have Barca loungers there, they promised me you would, you might be feeling like you're in the seating of Woe. But I like that idea because without having the 20, you can think of that as a 0. And now it's like a base 20 system, 0 through 19, instead of 1 through 20. So I think that's awesome. So today is Thursday, February 11th, 2016. On the Tzolk'in calendar, that would be 7 Manik. So there's the 7, and then you see the cartouche around the Tzolk'in date. The Hob calendar, 15 Pash. So to remind you of how these calendars work, tomorrow will be not 7 Manik, it'll be 8, and that will change to Lamont. You didn't need to know that. But it's 15 Posh, so tomorrow will be 16 Posh. So that one works just like our numbers and days of the month. We often picture these two calendars working together in a cycle called the calendar round. This is what the Maya called it, the calendar round, but this construct is our construct. It's made to look nice and ancient, but it's this gear structure. So we look at this and we say, okay, this is 4 Ahau, 7 Sek. The way this works is this inner ring is the numbers 1, 2, 3, all the way around to 13. These are the day names, Ahau, Imish, Ik, Akbal, and all the way around the 20 day names. And over here, we've got the 365-day calendar. So this is 8 Sek here. If we were to rotate this gear one time, we'd be at that point where we would have 5 Imish, 9 Sek, and then 6 Akbal, 10 Sek. And that's how it would work. And we would ask ourselves, if we were Maya, how long will it be until we come back around to 4 Ahau, 8 Sek? Well, we have a 260-day Tzolk'in cycle, a 365-day Hob cycle, and what we're looking for is the least common multiple of those two numbers. It's a little more complicated because they have some common factors. Yeah, but we can do that in our head really quick. 18,980 days. Notice, if we do one complete Hob cycle, we've done 365 days. But that's not enough to get us back to the beginning for the 260-day calendar. We're only partially through that second time around that. So that 18,980 days is 52 Hob cycles and 73 Tzolk'in cycles. So when you're getting close to 52, there are no leap years here, but you would, if you were Maya, celebrate 13 years before what you consider your birthday. 13 days before your 52nd birthday would be your calendar round, and you'd have a big party. So you can get 2 parties that month if you're good. Well, I think that's all for that one. Now, there will be squats, but we're not going to have to do them. This is the audience participation part. So I'd ask that you stand up, please. We're going to do a little experiment with cycles, and with cycles coming together. And I would like, now why are we standing up, you say? Because sitting is the new smoking. Okay. I learn something every Tauzer lecture. I want to divide you up into two groups. So this group here, over here on my left, your right, and this group over here. I'm going to start with you guys. We're going to count to 12. And as we count to 12, Dr. Chong will be doing squats. Why, you ask? Because he can, and I can't. But simultaneously, some numbers will be coming up. And I would ask that you clap on every third number you have over here. So 3, 6, 9, 12. Does that make sense? All right, so let's see if we can do this. We're going to practice here. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I had some trouble with this technology, and I was afraid this would happen. The numbers and the squats don't quite sync up. It's not that Dr. Chong has no rhythm. It is a flaw in the technology. So what I would suggest is that we'll just look, and when the number comes up, we'll clap, and we'll just enjoy the fact that we don't have to do squats. You guys did a great job. So just hang tight for a minute. This is half of the audience now that gets to participate. If you're in the middle, you can kind of sneak and say, oh, I did it with the other guys. I want you guys to clap with every fourth beat. So over here, you'll see numbers from 1 to 4. Are you ready? All right. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How awesome! What we're going to do now is you guys are going to clap every third, again, 3, 6, 9, 12, and you guys are going to clap 4, 8, 12. Notice you guys get less work. All right. All right, so let's try and see if we can do this together. Oops. 1, 2. Hey. All right. Now you go ahead and get sit down. I don't know what that sounded like when you're out in the audience, but up here, when you guys came together, it sounded awesome. Everyone in the audience knew that when you got to 12, you were going to be clapping all together. But did you feel a little bit of suspense? A little bit of wondering, what's it going to sound like when everybody does it? And then everyone's clapping right next to you, so don't even hear it. You say, I don't know. It sounded the same. But that suspense was the same suspense that the Maya would feel as these cycles would come back together. And they'd be preparing a huge celebration. All right. But wait a minute, you say. Everyone talks about the accuracy of the Maya calendar. And yet, what we've seen is they have a 365-day calendar. It doesn't even have leap years. So how can we say their calendar is accurate? Well, the current value of the solar year, the time it takes for the sun to travel around and come to the same position in space, is 365 point blah, 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 blah days. Let's look at our calendar. The Gregorian calendar is a 400-year cycle, and we have 365 days every year. But we add an extra day every 4 years. We get one today, or this month, I mean, right? February 29th this month. Only happens once every 4 years. We should celebrate. But we don't do that on the centuries. 1900, no leap year. Except the century is divisible by 400. So in 2000, there was a leap year. I hope you celebrated. It was the only leap year on a century in 400 years. Wow, awesome. I'm sure I spent the night at the pub because I'm there every night. So let's see how good our calendar is. We have 400-year cycle of 365 days each. We add on the 100 leap years over those 400 years, but take off the 3 for those centuries that don't have the leap year. That gives us a total of 146,000 days and some change over 400 years, 365.2425. Compare that to our number up there. We're off by, if we round, 3 days every 10,000 years. Yeah. We go through a lot of gyrations, but December 21st is always going to be winter solstice for us. We'll be off by 3 days in 10,000 years, but we're not going to be around to notice that. So that's pretty nice. Well, what about the Maya calendar? They didn't go through those gyrations. To the Maya, it was more important to preserve the cycle. They had no adjustments, but also no worries. How can we say their calendar is accurate? It doesn't matter that Winter solstice is December 21st every year. If I can tell you that in 12 years, this is the day it will land on, and in 50 years, this is the day it will land on, then I have an understanding of how the solar year and the calendar work. So there's two approaches. Tinker with your calendar all the time to make it the same day, or let the day drift, but just tell me what day it's going to be on. So prediction of future events determines the accuracy of the Maya, and there's evidence in Köppen and Tikal that 29 calendar rounds corresponds to 1,507 solar years. Not every anthropologist agrees with this evidence. So this is disputed, but if we believe this, then we have 29 calendar rounds. Remember, those are 52-year cycles of the Hob, so that's 365 days each. That gives us 550,000 plus days. We divide that by 1,507 years to get 365.242203 days per year, an accuracy of 4 days every million years. That's pretty darn accurate, especially considering that we're working with naked eye observations. All right, other cycles. This is 5 pages from the Dresden Codex. And Forstemann looked at this and said, at the bottom corner, there's the same 5 or the same 4 two-digit numbers at every spot on these 5 pages. So what could those numbers mean? Well, let's figure out what those numbers are. It's a little hard to read those, so we'll do this. And let's see, we want to do this one first. Do you remember how to do Maya numbers?
Because you know I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that.
It's all about the bass. All right, it's all about the bass. That was not Meghan Trainor. I like that version better. But what was the base of the Maya system? 20. So this upper number tells you how many 20s, this how many units. So this number is 5, 10, 11 20s, and the bottom number would be 16 ones, which adds up to 236. Let's set that number aside for a minute. This number, well, how many 20s do you see there? 4 20s, dot, 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 4 20s, and 10 ones, so we get 90. That number, let's see, 12 20s is 240, plus 10 is 250. So let's just throw that over there. And the last one's the easy one. What's that number? 0, and below it? 8. So we have no 20s and 8. So we get 8. Those add up to 584, and that means absolutely nothing to me. But Forstemann, showing how he really was the right guy in the right place, said, oh, I know what that is. That's the synodic period of Venus. Now let me explain a little bit about what synodic period is. There's the sidereal period, which is the time it takes Venus to circle the sun and return to the same point in space. The synodic period is how we view Venus. It's how long it takes Venus to return to the same spot in the sky relative to the sun. And since Earth is moving while Venus is moving, they're different numbers. So notice it's about 584 days. And remember those 4 numbers? 236 days, Venus is visible as a morning star. 90 days, it's behind the sun, invisible. 260 days as an evening star, and then 8 days it's invisible as it crosses in front of the sun. So those 4 numbers were all about Venus, and these 5 pages are all about Venus. And what they list is Tzolk'in and Hob calendar dates for 65 cycles of Venus in our sky. Now, why 65 cycles, you say? Turns out that 65 times 584 is the same as 104 times 365, is the same as 146 times 260. You keeping up? Trust me. But what does that even mean? What it means is 65 cycles of Venus is the same as 104 Hob cycles, is the same as 146 Tzolk'in cycles. So after about 104 solar years, Venus will be in the same position in the sky on the same Tzolk'in and Hob date. And you can start this calendar again and go through it for another 100 years, 65 cycles of Venus. So all these cycles would be coming together. And Venus was hugely important to the Maya. The position of Venus would sometimes be used to time battles. And this is a problem because you remember it wasn't exactly 584? It was off a little bit. You'd be off by 4 or 5 days by the time you got to the end of this table. But the Maya knew that, but they didn't want to mess with the cycle. So these pages contain instructions telling you that if you get a little bit off, bounce out and jump back to the beginning of the table, and you'll have at least the correct Tzolk'in date for the position of Venus. But the preservation of the cycle on these pages is just amazing. We have one more calendar to discuss. The long count. The long count is just a linear count of days, sometime starting way in ancient history. So I might think back to the day I was born and say that was day 1. The next day would be day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and we just keep counting. That's the long count. And the long count starts with days, keens, in the first position. Since they use base 20, 20 days, it's called a weanal. That's also the name for person. The name for 20 days and the name for person are the same. That combination of 20 being a person. The next position, if we were really using base 20, would be 400, 20 times 20, like we have hundreds place. But they used a 360 there. It's the only time they varied from their base 20. Then 20 tunes, which tunes are about a year. So 20 tunes with 7,200 days is a katun. And then the baktun was the longest time period, 20 katuns, or 400 years about, a 400-year period. So they would count their days using a positional system like this. Now, this is how we write it, with dots between each space. And remember, there can be up to 19 in every space except the second one because of the 360 days. Well, when did the Maya start their calendar? They started their calendar on August 11th, 3114 BC. Why that day? Because on that day, the hero twins resurrected their father, the maize god. Maize is so important, it's their main food source. They resurrected their father, their maize god. They set the 3 hearthstones upon which this universe, this creation is founded. So this is Maya creation day for our creation. Those 3 hearthstones can still be found in every traditional Maya home. They cook over that fire, they put a plancha on the top. And in the sky, we see those 3 and the stars of the constellation Orion, and the Orion Nebula represents the flame inside. That 35-foot stone monument, tallest in the Americas, was a representation of this wonderful Maya creation date. But this isn't the first creation. It's again a cycle. But this is the day, is the commemoration of that date. The way we read Maya glyphs is we start in pairs of columns, and we go across and down, just like that. That top glyph is an introductory glyph. We usually read as the count of years is. And then can you see what that number is right there? 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 baktuns. And check this out. There's a hand. What's that hand represent again? 0. And then here's another hand, another 0. And then there's the partially obscured quatrefoil, which is also 0, and then 0. So this is the date, the long count date, 13.0.0.0.0 for Ahau 8 Kumku. So on August 11th, 3114 BC, we had that date. The next day, notice it resets to 0. It resets to 0 because we have a new creation. We've made possible this human life that we have. And notice that the Tzolk'in date went up 1 number, 1 day name, and from 8 Kumku to 9 Kumku. So that the month in the Maya calendar. Today's date in long count would be 13.0.3.3.7, and tomorrow 13.0.3.3.8. I want to show you this long count date. Notice there's only one column, the introductory glyph up at top. Then we have 10 baktuns, that's 400-year cycles. So we're talking about 4,000 years since creation, plus 4 katuns, plus 80 more years. There's a 0, 0 tunes, another 0 for weanals, and then it's broken for the number of days. But there could be at most 19 days in that position before you get another weanal. So we think it's probably a 0, because the Maya spent a lot of time and energy celebrating the ends of these katuns. I bring this one up because it's from 909 CE. Of all the monuments we've examined, that's the most recent date we can find on any monument. So this long count calendar was in use by the Maya during the Classic period, but it wasn't much in use after that. Here's Stela 3 at Piedras Negras. And again, remember, we read across and then down like that. This is a very long tablet. But if we read this tablet from the top, there's the introductory glyph. And then in the column to the right, we see the number 9. So 9 Bach tunes, 12 Ka tunes, 2 tunes, 0 Wienels, and 16 Keen. And then we have the Tzolk'in date, 5 Kib, and the Hab date is way down at the very bottom, 14 Yashkin. And everything in between those two is a fourth calendar the Maya used, the lunar calendar. Now think about this. Here's a stone monument. We've just spent 25% of it telling you what day it is, orienting this in time. The monument goes on to talk about Lady Katunahau, a very powerful queen in Piedras Negras. She ruled for over 20 years. It talks about her birth, her marriage to the king at age 12, the birth of her daughter, and in particular, this monument commemorates a ceremony that she participated in, and that's what the monument was erected to commemorate in 909 CE. So this date would be written by us, 9.12.2.0.16. All right. This is where a lot of the mystique 2012 came from. Because back in December 20th of 2012, the date was 12.19.19.17.19. One more day we're going to add. But if we add 1 to 19, it's now what? It's an easy question, right? Go for that one. Wait, don't wait for the factoring the polynomials. Add 1 to 19 is 20. So what we do is we'd put a 0 there and we'd bump over. And we'd keep bumping over because that second place only had 18 in it. And the next day would be 13.0.0. What happened last time it was 13.0.0? It was the end of the past creation, the start of this new creation. But that was because the maize god had been killed by the lords of the underworld, and his twin sons came to resurrect him. The only place that date was ever mentioned in the Maya world was here on this Tortuguero Monument 6 in Mexico. Tortuguero is the site of a gravel factory now. I'm going to read you this part starting over here. There's a hand symbol there. Do you remember what the hand represents? 0. But you know what else it represents? A completion. Think about a cycle that starts at 0, and when you complete the cycle, you're back at 0. So I think this is awesome, something that is the beginning and also the end, and the beginning again. But what that says is, at the completion of, then the next glyph over on the right, there's 13 Bach tunes. So at the end of the 13th Bach tune, on 4 Ahau 3 Konkin, that's the December 21st, 2012 date, it's going to happen, and then it's cracked.
It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine.
All right, well, I feel fine. But, it doesn't say what's going to happen. It doesn't say there's some Armageddon coming. It's just referring to a date here. And I want to talk to you about some evidence that we had that the Maya did not think the world was going to end, but just continue on its cycle. In Palenque, in the Temple of Inscriptions, there's a date that projects to October 21st, 4772, well into our future. And that date, the reason it's there is because they say the great King Pakal will have the same Tzolk'in and Hab date for his birthday in this year, and it'll be only 8 days away from the end of the 21st Bach tune. So they're orienting that date to the end of this cycle, to the end of another cycle, the completion of these calendar rounds to the end of another cycle. So he wasn't Mayan. You remember him? Before he was known as a vampire slayer, he was President of the United States. And his most famous speech, perhaps, is the Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our forefathers brought forth onto this continent a new nation. First, 80, a score is 20 years. He's talking Maya numbers, base 20. I like it. But what is he doing? Why is he saying this, giving this speech? Gettysburg was the site of a horrible, horrible battle. Tremendous sacrifice and loss had gone on there. And he's talking about not the Civil War, but he's referring back to the Revolutionary War, an event of great cultural significance to our country. And he's lending the weight of the creation of our country to these men and women who have lost their lives here on this battlefield and the great sacrifices made that day. Past and future dates are used by the Maya to orient more significant events occurring at the time the monuments are created. In the Stela 3 from Piedras Negras, remember, it's all about Lady Katunahau. But let's check out what it says at the very end over here. It's hard to read, and it extends down here in a single thing, so I'll bring that up. And it's still hard to read, so I'll make a little drawing of it. Valdeck, get that elephant out of there. Okay. If we look at that upper glyph, you see a 4 and you also see a 19. And what that says is 4 months and 19 days later, it was, and then 6 Ahau, and then below that, 13 Muon, that's the Tzolk'in and Hob date, the completion of, there's that hand, the 14th Katun. So they talk all about this event, and then the last thing they end their monument with is, and 99 days later, we're going to get to the end of this great period. And if you think about that monument, Tortuguero Monument 6, that's what they were doing. Perhaps. We don't know because it's broken. But the end of monuments often referred to the ends of cycles, and they would lend the importance then of that celebration to the event occurring at that moment. If we were to ask the experts what they believed, in times of crisis, the ancient Maya used their calendar to promote continuity and stability rather than predict apocalypse. And for the ancient Maya, it was a huge celebration to make it to the end of a cycle, and cosmic shifts are a complete fabrication and a chance for a lot of people to cash in. There's a stipend, right? Yeah, okay. David Christensen is an anthropologist at BYU, and he also lived in the highland of Guatemala for a long time. He apprenticed himself to Maya day keepers and learned the ceremonies and practiced with them and still practices today. And what he said, and you'll notice the date's a little different, what he said was, the world is going, what? The world's going to die on December 23rd? What? Oh, first of all, a calendar that's been out of use since 909, there's some little glitches in trying to line it up with our calendar because we don't have any corresponding dates. So there's a 2-day difference. I like to use December 21st because that corresponds to the Tzolk'in and Hob days that the modern Maya daykeepers still are using. But some people think there was a 2-day shift somewhere in there. But he says December 23rd, and he says the world's going to die. That doesn't make sense, except that he goes on to say, the Maya believe the world dies every day when the sun sets. And the role of the daykeeper is to make sure they get things going again by performing the correct rituals, by performing the correct ceremonies. And to me, this is a beautiful thought. And this is the thought that I would like to end with today, that every day, the shortest of cycles in our calendrical world, every day is a chance, every dawn is a chance at redemption. It's a chance at rebirth. It's a chance to recreate ourselves and our world in a better way. And every night we get a chance to start over. And that to me is a beautiful sentiment. And I think what I'd like to do is end my talk there. So this is the end, but it's a cycle. So it's also the beginning. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's enough. That's very enough. You're very generous. Thank you.
Phenomenal, Dan Munton. We would like to present on behalf of Santa Rosa Junior College a plaque, the stipend I think Dr. Chong has, in recognition of teaching excellence.
I guarantee it has a 0 in it.
with 5 zeros. The Brook Tauzer Faculty Lecture, Spring 2016, Daniel P. Munton, Mathematics Department, Professional Development Activity Day, February 15th, 2016. Please give Dan Munton a hand.
Thank you so much, Connie. Thank you so much. You are wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Before I let you loose for a half-hour coffee break, I want you to just look around in the particular rooms that you're in. Ellis Auditorium, we are packed with standing room for those of you in the fitness center. Fitness center is packed, standing room. So we are all here today, and we have 110 presenters from all disciplines, all departments. We have some community members. We also have some students that are participating as presenters. So go out and really enjoy the day. Hope to see you at the lunch break. But this is our day here as a community. So I wish you a good day.